This article is part of a series on intelligence cycle management, and deals with the dissemination of processed intelligence. For a hierarchical list of articles, see the intelligence cycle management hierarchy. It is a maxim of intelligence that intelligence agencies do not make policy, but advise policymakers. Nevertheless, with an increasingly fast pace of operations, intelligence analysts may suggest choices of actions, with some projection of consequences from each. Intelligence consumers and providers still struggle with the balance of what drives information flow. Dissemination is the part of the intelligence cycle that delivers products to consumers, and intelligence dissemination management refers to the process that encompasses organizing the dissemination of the finished intelligence. Intelligence information ranges from the equivalent of "we interrupt this television program" to book-length studies which may, or may not, be read by policymakers. Large documents sometimes are legitimately for specialists only. Other lengthy studies may be long-term predictions. Recent worldwide events show that high-level policymakers simply do not read large studies, while staff briefers may. In principle, intelligence is merely informational, and does not recommend policies. In practice, there are at least two specialized ways in which the effects of alternatives are considered. One is variously called a net assessment, correlation of forces analysis, or strategic assessment, and goes through comparisons of capabilities of both sides, and analyzing what the effects of various actions might be. The other is to use both information on one's own capabilities and the best information on the others, and run realistic role-playing games or simulations, with people having senior policy experience either acting as the opposition, or possibly executing one's own role in a hypothetical situation. Parameterizing, dissemination and use decisions need to consider the nature of interaction between provider and consumer, and the special requirements of security. Models in logistics. The two basic models are push. The producer initiates the flow and the consumer receives it. Pull. The consumer requests or initiates the flow and the provider generates it. Stating these as binary models, however, does not reflect the time factor. Drawing from business, another way of thinking about flow is the idea of just-in-time inventory management, where a minimum of parts stays in a factory or store, with a closed loop between supplier and manufacturer, seller. Sellers keep the producers informed, in real time, of their inventory and consumption rate. Suppliers adjust the rate of production and the mix of products to keep an efficient logistic pipeline filled but not overflowing. Push and pull, and JIT, models apply in intelligence as well, but are not always recognized as such. Logistical models, however, are simpler than certain cases of intelligence, where the logistic model commands in one direction and receives in the other. Some, but not all, forms of intelligence are interactive. To bring them together in a consistent model, consider, for a set of intelligence events, intelligence producer activity, intelligence consumer activity, flow type caused by event. Intelligence has to be relevant. There is relatively little interaction involved in producing the reference. Analysts add to it when they have new material, while analysts will do the basic work in developing indications and warning checklists. The analysts should get reality checks from the consumers. Where the analysts drive things, however, is when they issue warnings. The issuance of a warning is almost always going to generate questions. A tactical report, however, may be enough, in and of itself, not to need more clarification, but to have the consumer take immediate action. Situation monitoring involves a steady flow of analyst actions, but there will be fairly frequent refinement requests from the consumers. While analysts generate estimates, estimates may not be relevant unless consumers have been involved in defining the requirements for estimates. Irrelevance is a related and arguably bigger problem for analysts than politicization. Intelligence analysis rarely impresses itself upon policymakers, who are inevitably busy and inundated with more demands on their time and attention than they can possibly meet. Intelligence officials must draw attention to their product and market their ideas. This is especially true in the case of any early warning or intelligence-related development that has potentially significant consequences for important interests. A phone call, a personalized memorandum, a meeting, any and all are required if the situation is sufficiently serious, involving relevant policymakers and other consumers in the regular personnel evaluations of the analysts who serve them would strengthen the importance of such an effort and provide an incentive to individual analysts. CFR. The proper relationship between intelligence gathering and policymaking sharply separates the two functions. Congress, not the administration, asked for the now infamous October 2002 National Intelligence Estimate on Iraq's unconventional weapons programs, although few members of Congress actually read it. As the National Intelligence Officer for the Middle East, I was in charge of coordinating all of the intelligence community's assessments regarding Iraq. The first request I received from any administration policymaker for any such assessment was not until a year into the war. Pillar constraints. Many nations have an extremely restricted daily report that goes to the highest officials, a more widely circulated daily that emits only the most sensitive source information, and a weekly summary at a lower classification level, more generally than the classified equivalent of all news channels. Dissemination is the process of distribution of raw or finished intelligence to the consumers whose needs initiated the intelligence requirements. Some parts of the intelligence community are reluctant to put their product onto even a classified web or wiki, due to concern that they cannot control dissemination once the material is in the published online format, while modern information storage simplifies the handling and dissemination of exceptionally sensitive material, especially if it never is committed to hard copy. The systematic handling of compartmented information probably is most associated with the Special Liaison Units originally for the distribution of British ultra-COMINT. These units, and the equivalent U.S. Special Security Offices, usually brought material to indoctrinated recipients, perhaps waited to answer questions, and took back the material. In some large headquarters, there was a special security reading room. SLUs, SSOs had from World War II on, dedicated, high-security communications links intended for their use alone. On occasion, senior commanders would send private messages over these channels. Prior to U.S. adoption of the British system, officer couriers brought COMINT to the White House and State Department, staying with the reader in most cases for a time, after an intercept was found in the waste paper basket of FDR's military aid. The Army and Navy cryptanalytic agencies unilaterally cut off White House access. In current U.S. practice, there may be a special security office with the physical security of a sensitive compartmented information facility used for sensitive compartmented information and special access programs. Information inside an organization, parts of intelligence agencies, or manufacturing facilities for special access projects, may, in their entirety, be considered secure for such material. Computer workstations with access to special security systems, if the overall building is not approved for them, may be kept in the SCIF. Soviet military intelligence residentures in embassies had a central record room, from which individual GRU officers would check out locked file boxes, carry them to curtained alcoves, do their work, reseal the box, and check it back in. Dissemination of intelligence products. Basic intelligence consumers often need to look up individual facts. Increasingly, this material is in hyperlinked online documents, such as Intellipedia, which exists at the unclassified but for official use only, secret, and TS/SCI levels. Different agencies have different attitudes toward such publication. A resident consultant said that the CIA Directorate of Intelligence is uncomfortable with other than an originator-controlled model, while NSA seems more willing to let information flow among cleared users. Warning and current intelligence at a given level. Current intelligence centers continually provide customers, including other intelligence organizations, with the all-source equivalent of daily newspapers and weekly news magazines. Current intelligence often is briefed directly to senior officers. Current intelligence organizations need to be concerned with both tactical and strategic warning. The goal of tactical warning is to inform operational commanders of an event requiring immediate action. Warning of attacks is tactical, indicating that an opponent is not only preparing for war, but will attack in the near term. The goal of strategic warning is to prevent major surprises for policy officials. Surprises, in part, manifest themselves in changes in the probability that some conceived of event will take place, such that contingency plans are in place to respond to tactical warnings. A warning to national policymakers that a state or alliance intends war, or is on a course that substantially increases the risks of war and is taking steps to prepare for war, comes from attacks against the analyst's country and its interests, which can come from state or non-state actors, through military, terrorist, economic, information, and other means. The breakdown of stability in an area or country critical to one's own side. Key changes in adversary strategy and practice, especially with respect to terrorism or WMD proliferation. Attacks against the United States and its interests abroad by states and non-state actors, via military, terrorist, and other means. In combination, indications and warning provide alerts of potential or highly probable threat on the part of or hostile organizations. Indications may suggest preparation, such as an unusual pace of preventive maintenance, troop or supply transfers to shipping points, etc. Warnings are more immediate, such as the deployment of units in combat formation near national borders. Positive indications and warning may call for more specific news reports and briefings. Countries with modern intelligence and operations communications networks can, on detecting indications and warnings, can initiate collaboration tools to help analysts share information. Specific actions, ranging from border crossings in large formations, to sorties of nuclear-capable ships and aircraft to actual explosions, move at high priority on both operational and intelligence networks. In the current environment of asymmetrical warfare by transnational groups, a given person dropping from sensors, or suddenly appearing outside their usual place, can be an indication of activity. Tactical intelligence. According to the basic U.S. Army Manual on Intelligence, fundamental to decision-making in regard to any military operation is knowledge of the environment, since it enables combatants to optimize the assets they have, to target their effort, to anticipate developments and husband their force. Current doctrine treats intelligence as one of 7 battlefield operating systems: intelligence, maneuver, fire support, air defense, mobility, counter-mobility, survivability, combat service support, and command and control, that enable commanders to build, employ, direct, and sustain combat power. Exercising the intelligence function produces information in several areas. Intelligence preparation of the battlefield. IPB helps the commander understand the current situation and its background. Situation development, which presents potential enemy courses of action to the commander. Intelligence support to force protection. Conduct, police intelligence operations at appropriate organizational levels, contributes to national intelligence through the Joint Military Intelligence Program. Tactical intelligence and related activities is the mirror image of military JMIP, providing direct support to warfighters, with supporting intelligence units, synchronize intelligence development with surveillance and reconnaissance. The operations officer tasks the various units, with the intelligence officer defining objectives and analyzes the result. Manage distribution of national-level information, which may be sensitive compartmented information or special access programs. SI and SAP need special access controls. All these tasks take place within the dimensions of threat, political, unified action, land combat operations, information, and technology. Starting with the basics. Salute standardization works very well for reporting, when it is drilled in from the beginning. The U.S. Army has a new slogan, reinforced with video games, that every soldier is a sensor. Standardized reporting for the most basic tactical things work under pressure, such as that which is defined by the acronym SALUTE, for a report about spotting the enemy. Size. How many men in the unit? Activity. What are they doing? Location. Where are they? Give map coordinates if available, otherwise the best description available. Unit. Who are they? Uniforms. Descriptions. Time. When did you see them? Equipment. What weapons do they have? Vehicles. Radios. Anything else distinctive? Friction and standardization. With a trend toward multinational operations, there is even more opportunity for friction. When different doctrines and restricted to own nationals information become involved, U.S. units, through TNCAP, are able to access national-level assets such as IMINT satellites, but rarely can share it with coalition partners. For nuclear, biological, and chemical attacks, a CBRN warning and reporting system is standardized among NATO countries and Australia. The basic reports are CBRN-1 initial report, used for parsing basic data compiled at unit level. CBRN-2 report, used for parsing evaluated data. CBRN-3 report, used for immediate warning of predicted contamination and hazard areas. CBRN-4 report, used for parsing monitoring and survey results. CBRN-5 report, used for parsing information on areas of actual contamination. CBRN-6 report, used for parsing detailed information on chemical or biological attacks. These reports, as are many such, are forms with lines identified by letter, by text or by radio. One reads off letter codes, such as CBRN1, B, C, and so forth. Beyond watch centers. Situation and interdisciplinary monitoring as distinct from information needed for continuing tactical information, which often will come from organic or attached military intelligence units. National-level crises will need continuing and focused situation monitoring at the national or multinational level. To be able to establish situation-specific task forces or topical centers, there must be adequate basic intelligence, pre-assignments to task forces, and appropriate collaborative tools and basic intelligence. Situation intelligence products need to be relevant to the level of reflection of the HQ making use of it. Strategic, operational or tactical, in some cases, the existing current intelligence, or indications and warnings. Centers of national agencies may be adequate. The next step would be to set up conference calls or other collaborative techniques to link the relevant specialists in operations centers of different agencies, different countries, or perhaps multinational centers. These collaborations will produce periodic situation reports to be disseminated to appropriate policymakers. It also disseminates other daily intelligence updates and products. Longer range, more intractable intelligence challenges are addressed by grouping analytic and operational personnel from concerned agencies into close-knit, functional units. Examples at both the national and multinational levels include counterterrorism and verification of compliance with non-proliferation treaties. Estimates are coordinated analyses by the intelligence community at the national levels, or by the various intelligence staff sections at a command level, of the various courses of action available to an actor of interest, and the likelihood of each Estimates primarily consider the unilateral actions of the other side, or its actions in response to a well-defined actions of one's own side. Estimates are not strategic assessments, which examine a broader scope of strengths and weaknesses between one side and that of another. Most countries with a well-developed system of estimates have different types, with different timescales, and representing either an intelligence community consensus, or possibly an ideologically oriented group that justifies a pre-made conclusion. In the U.S., national intelligence estimates are detailed analyses, typically in the tens to hundreds of pages, produced once a reasonable consensus is reached. These documents may contain dissenting footnotes, also called reclamations, documenting a disagreement by a particular organization or specialists. NIEs are typically associated with standing task groups. Special national intelligence estimates are short-term community documents, in response to a specific customer requirement. There is controversy over the U.S. Office of Special Plans and whether it bypassed the intelligence community cross-checking process. Winston Churchill had his own intelligence advisor, Sir Desmond Morton, who might bypass the World War II estimative process. Estimative intelligence helps policymakers to think strategically about long-term threats by discussing the implications of a range of possible outcomes and alternative scenarios. They are not strictly operational, but fall into a special analysis and dissemination category because they usually involve multi-agency coordination. In the topmost article of this series, Sun Tzu was quoted. The Griffiths translation does speak of estimates, but, according to Pillsbury, a new translation from the Chinese Academy of Military Science argues that Griffiths mistranslated strategic assessments is more accurate than estimates.